It's recording.
Behind you.
Behind me? How's that? I probably lost it. Okay, let me bring it back. Yeah. Okay.
Tomorrow or Friday, I'm going to go to Whole Foods and smell spice now.
All right. I'm just going to put the PowerPoint up.
Frankincense and myrrh, I like to smell those things.
Okay. So this is class 10, and we're doing the last couple chapters of Ecclesiastes. And I basically want to put up the upcoming assignment here. Yeah, we've done 10 sessions now, and this is the last class for Ecclesiastes. We'll have one more class. Is it one more class next week, or no? Let me see. No? I think we will have 2 weeks of hiatus, the 9th and the 16th, right? So that's next week, right? The 9th and then the 16th, just because we're having the Eastern Cantata practices, decoration, and everything. So this room will be transformed. But do your homework. If you get a chance, read Song of Solomon. It's only 8 chapters. Fee and Stewart they have a great introduction. If you haven't gotten a copy, it's back there on the summary of Song of Solomon. All right, so folks should have gotten their quiz back, review questions. I'm going to skip over here. We already did that. We'll do a quick review. So the book of Ecclesiastes, I know Pastor Bailey had mentioned it in this evening service. And we basically uncovered the last 3 chapters. Very poignant. I think, Solomon, at his much older age, has really seen the world from his eyes as not only the king of Israel, right? He saw all the glory that he has seen from his father David's reign, all the, riches, the building of the temple. David has not only shored up all the wealth and also, had all his, the people that served for him, those who are very wealthy, to actually give a lot of the donations, the gold, silver, all the craftsmen to build the temple. So Solomon had a lot of experience seeing a lot of different things, not just building temple, but because of the peacetime, right? Because David fought in a lot of wars, and he couldn't build the temple because he had a lot of blood on his hands. But during Solomon's time, it was a really long, peaceful time for the kingdom of Israel. So he basically entertained a lot of dignitaries, right? Rulers of all throughout the ancient Near East, Egypt, all the way down to Ethiopia. And they just really, these people came to see Solomon and how wise he was as a ruler. Now, the title of Ecclesiastes comes from the Greek transliteration. It means the same as it is in Hebrew, preacher or teacher, right? Someone who gathers assembly. And that basically gives you an understanding of the purpose why Solomon wrote Ecclesiastes, is to teach his people, and specifically his son, Rehoboam, right, who's going to take over the reign of the entire kingdom. Now, indeed, he was the wisest king ever in Israel, but, ultimately, at the end, if you have to look at the life of Solomon, he realized that, with all that wisdom that he had, in some ways that he was a fool in God's sight. After, being misled, his heart being misled by all the foreign concubines, right? And we know that it was because his foreign concubines, a lot of these idol worship came in to the kingdom as well, okay? And it just led his heart astray from the Lord at his later years, right? And ultimately the preacher in Ecclesiastes, teaches that life without God under the sun is meaningless or vanity. Under the sun, as I mentioned, 2 weeks ago, what does that mean, under the sun? Well, it's not heaven, right? It's earth, right? It's where, things are not perfect on this side, right? And we can see that under the sun could also mean a life without God. Okay? And I think not just with all the imperfection in this side of heaven, right? There's a lot of toiling, there's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of evil, right? So the authors mention things that are vanity, Hevel, right? Hevel. And what is vanity? What is Hevel? Well, let's go through the list. How's that? It means vapor, not lasting long, disappearing. The wind, fertility leading to frustration and profitlessness. That's why it's meaningless, right? It doesn't last. And it's used 37 times in Ecclesiastes. The list of mist or vapor, right? He lists them all. This is a good compilation. Everything that you can possibly pursue as a human being, as a person, whether you're wealthy or poor, or you're not a nobleman or you're a slave. These things you probably Solomon here categorized as vanity. You got life, pleasure, wealth. One thing not included, but it's in verse 2, is that everything, including wisdom. Wisdom is vanity too. And I want to just rewind. I know Pastor Bailey ended at chapter 8 last week, and I wanted to mention that we could turn to chapter 8, the last few verses, 16 to 17. And I'm going to start from there because I thought it was very related to the next three chapters from chapter 9 to 12, because we're going to talk a lot about, the great equalizer, right, which is death, right. So I'm going to go to Ecclesiastes and chapter 8, verses 16 to 17. When I applied my heart to know wisdom and to see the business that is done on earth, how neither day nor night do one's eyes see sleep. Then I saw all the work of God, that man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun. However much many may toil in seeking, he will not find it out. Even though a wise man claims to know, he cannot find it out. So verse 16 is again, so when the preacher himself applied to his heart of wisdom, right? To see the business, what's all, he can see with his, naked eye, right? Neither day nor do I sleep, nor night do one's eyes see sleep. Then I saw the work of God, right? So verse 17, he shares that he sees the unseen, sort of. He sees the work of God, the amazing work of God. Probably talking about the Leviathan, how he was created, or the big behemoth, right? Basically, this contrast to something besides what we can see in our naked eyes, right? But in verse 17 he says, then I saw all the work of God, that man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun. And we do have to go back that, when Solomon asked God to give him wisdom to rule over his people, he gave him that wisdom. But this is the work of God, right? Man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun. Yeah, the ordinary man, like us, but however much man may toil in seeking, ordinary person can go on a quest to seek out, a cure in the Amazon forest, for example. Or go and dive into the deepest body of water or ocean on earth, right? See what's down there, right? However much man may toil in seeking, he will not find it out. Even though a wise man claims to know it, he cannot find it out. We can claim that's how deep that part of the ocean is, but do we really know how those creatures actually survive such depth of all that pressure, right, beneath the water, right? Or how the Amazon forest just continually renew itself, Right now, I think a lot of people are protesting, you're cutting all these trees in the Amazon forest, but the Amazon forest will grow back. It will. It'll heal itself. And people do believe that there are some natural healing whether it's in the plants or in things that grow in the Amazon forest. And today we know that a humongous swath of land does suck in all the carbon, you know.
Mhm.
You know, and that's why we're so afraid that one day if the Amazon forest, there goes, the greenhouse effect will get worse, right? But the point is that even some of the discoveries, or not even discoveries, some of the things we theorized, physicists, mathematicians, astronomers, it's just theories, and they still can't comprehend it, right? We still can't comprehend it because it's the theories, can't really put into practice. And I think in the past we talked a little bit about space, space travel, living space. Honestly, I don't think we were created for space. The astronauts that recently came back. We understand that you lose a lot of muscle mass up there. They constantly have to work on these treadmills every day. And these weight exercises because they have to keep their muscle mass. Otherwise, just like when they step off the spaceship after they come back, they're just going to be like, whoa, gravity, right? But there's certain things we can understand, certain things we, through general revelation, revealed in nature, but we still can't comprehend all of it. I think what's it called, that Christian studio movie studio that recently put another movie out about this Christian researcher from Harvard that discovered the eyes, how it worked. And he himself was an atheist who became a Christian because he was looking at the eyeball. He was studying the eyeball. Mm-hmm. And he came to the conclusion, it was like, as an atheist, there has to be a creator that made the eyes to work exactly how it integrates with the brain. Right? Yes, Rick.
I'm sorry. I changed my prayer. I used to pray for the love that God has. You couldn't fit that in your heart. Or wisdom. You couldn't fit that in your brain. It would explode. So we have to ask a little bit of wisdom, but you can't possibly have all of the wisdom.
Yeah.
And that's why I think wisdom's part of this same thing is you can pretend you're wise, and maybe you might be wise than some people, but you don't know. We don't know anything, though.
I think the purpose of seeking wisdom, seeking knowledge, I think that's ingrained in our DNA. God made us to be curious too, but Solomon here says it's a toil too, because ultimately you can't know everything. You can only consume so much wisdom and knowledge, right? But it's also a toil because sometimes we don't understand a lot of things, and we don't accept that as wisdom, or we don't accept that as experience. And it's like, okay, I don't get that, but okay, all right.
Well, he did with Job. He told him, you were there when I...
Yep. That's right. When God responded to Job, he didn't respond to Job's answers. He asked Job, he actually interrogated Job instead, right? He didn't tell Job, this is why you're suffering, because I had a wager with Satan, right? Because I believe you're the most righteous person. No, he didn't tell him that. He just interrogated Job. Job, so you think you're that right? Okay, it's fine. But I'm going to interrogate, are you God? No, because he wasn't there for this and this or that, or how this and this and that was made, right? Mm-hmm. But I think ultimately from Solomon's perspective, all through the years is his reign, right? And him doling out wisdom, being judge over Israel as well, and also people just marvel at his wisdom, and they just have, I'm sure, long, nice discussions about things that ultimately I think for us, whether we focus one area in our lives for our entire lifespan to be an expertise in it, how much content would that give us? Probably without God, right? It still does not fill that hole in our heart. I think going back to Genesis, God created us to fellowship with God, right? To worship Him, and that's a hole that there's nothing that That's why all that list of myths, right? That it can't fill that hole, that desire for wanting the Lord, to worship Him, to love Him, to be in fellowship with Him. And again, and I haven't seen this movie yet, but Angel Studios, that's right, they put out this movie, Angel Studios. So about this atheist researcher who actually became a Christian because this is research through the eyeball, right? I guess under the sun you can toil away and just do as much research to learn about something that no one else knows about or have written about, but ultimately at the end, what can you conclude? So, this Harvard researcher concluded that there is a creator, and which led him to become a Christian. So, and we're going to continue with chapter 9 onward. Just don't want to take up too much time here. So 9, so we moved from 8 to 9 now. Okay, that's wisdom. But 9 is going to talk about, you're going to toil through all your life. How about those who don't really pursue all these other things? Well, 9 is going to talk more about how every human being, their days are numbered here on earth. Verse 1, chapter 9. But all this I lay to heart. This is the preacher talking here. Examining it all, how the righteous and the wise and their deeds are in the hand of God. Whether it is love or hate, man does not know. Both are before him. It is the same for all, since the same event happens to the righteous and the wicked, to the good and the evil, to the clean, the unclean, to him who sacrifices and him who does not sacrifice. As the good one is, so is the sinner, and he who swears is as he who shuns an oath. This is an evil in all that is done under the sun, that the same event happens to all. Also the hearts of the children of man are full of evil, and madness is their hearts while they live, and after that they will go to the dead. So there it is. After that they will go to the dead. What is the event that happens to all? Death. Whether it's you're evil or you're good, right? It's just that it's being very long-winded here, but he wants to make a point. Since the same event happens to the righteous and the wicked, right? I remember an older sister in the morning class said, Ecclesiastes actually is used in a lot of funerals, by pastors. It's a good way. It's a good way to introduce the gospel, actually. And I remember listening to one pastor. I attended a lot of funerals that he actually gave an exhortation. He would use Ecclesiastes in a way that he would start with, okay, we're all on this train ride. We're all on this train. We're all going to the same place. Whether you're good, bad, rich, poor, you're of noble descent or noble title, or just an ordinary person. We're all on the same train. We're all going to the same stop. Now, if we're all going to the same stop, what's the difference, right? There's really no difference. You're not taking any additional luggage with you. You can't take anything with you on this train. So basically, he's using the same kind of comparison in Ecclesiastes, right? That this great equalizer, the reality of death, is upon all of us. Because none of us are immortal. None of us are. And this is a reminder here to him who sacrifices and him who does not sacrifice. Whether you're a believer or unbeliever, right? Your body is here only for a certain amount of time. And I have to remember, especially in all the funerals, this pastor says, death is not natural. It's an evil thing. It was never in God's original plan. That's why when death was introduced, right, after Adam's sin, it was introduced to the world, the earth, to the mankind. Through Adam, the rest of mankind was introduced physical death. Right, the body will waste away. Our days are numbered here on earth. So death is the evil. It's the true evil of all. Right, come to all. And understandably that he gives the introduction here in chapter 9 because he's going to spell out so you know that you're going to die. Everybody has their days numbered. What should you do? Because everything under the sun is meaningless, right? Verse 4. It's going to leave verse 4 from here. But he who is joined with all the living has hope, for a living dog is better than a dead lion. And verse 4 really is saying to those who are alive, and especially in a funeral, and this is where the pastor has an opportunity to share the gospel, because really funerals are for the living, it's not for the dead, right? It's for us living who have lost a loved one to be joyful because there's hope, especially if the person who had passed, is a believer. We look forward to seeing that person in heaven and fellowshipping with that person with God for eternity, right? But if you're not a believer and you don't know where you're going, you're unsure. You don't know whether there is a hell or a heaven, right? That's the worst thing, right? And this is, where the gospel comes in, right? And we have to realize that the author of Ecclesiastes is a God-fearer and God-believer. He has faith in God, right? And you will see that in chapter 12. But here he wants to tell you, okay, what should we do if, we're all on the same boat, we're all on the same train, right? So those who are living have hope, but the dead know nothing, right? Because it says, for a living dog is better than a dead lion. For the living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing, and they have no more reward, for the memory of them is forgotten, right? We can say, yes, a lot will be forgotten. In our modern day age, we can give out awards posthumously, we can set up statues, a star on Hollywood Boulevard or something, but still, truly, you're gone, right? You might be spoken of, you might be in a history book, in a lot of libraries, but remember, you got to go to the library to look at that person, or you'd be reading it, then you would come up to that person, right? But there's only so much of your life in a book or on a statue or whatever, right? Or even a name somewhere on a building or something, right? Verse 6, their love and their hate and their envy have already perished, and forever they have no more share in all that is done under the sun. And that's just the more of the the author, Solomon here saying, just all the emotions, all the feeling, and it will perish with them, right? And in some ways, it's sad too for good people, right? Especially if you have family members, right? And all that love and care and all that, and it's tragic to see how things just happen by chance. But it's really chance. Well, God's in control, right? And previous weeks we talked about what happened out in the West Coast with the fire, right? All that's gone, and so people have, not lives were lost, but it's just a lot of homes were lost, a lot of things burned up. You can't recover photos, you can't recover that. But then there's a tragic accident with the air collision, right?
Yeah.
That was really tragic. There were the families that were from the ice skating club Boston. There were families, kids. It was in a couple of minutes, those 100 people, they're gone, right? It's just tragic, right? So what does Solomon say about? So what do? You're gonna go. Well, he says, enjoy life. How to enjoy life? Breaking bread, drink, and be merry, right? Verse 7. Go, eat your bread with joy, and drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already approved what you do. I think he's saying God has already approved what you do. I think for those who are doing good, not evil, right, he already proved. But let your garments be always white. Let not oil be lacking on your head. And ancient Near East, white means cheerful, joyful, right? You could say that, what's the opposite of white? You guys remember Job when he was in sackcloth and sitting on ashes, all right? Or when David had to repent, he was in a sackcloth versus a white robe. So it's sackcloth basically is mean mourning. You're in mourning, you're in sorrow, right? But in white robe, white garment, cheerful. And also oil on your head, right? Anointing oil is a sign of joyful, right? So the toil of wisdom, no contentment because man, okay, skip that. And Let's see. Enjoy life, verse 9. Enjoy life with a wife whom you love all the days of your vain life that is given you under the sun, because that is your portion in life, and in your toil at which you toil under the sun. Definitely enjoy the portion of your family, right? Of your spouse, your partner, right? Your children. But here it says, because that is your portion in life, and in your toil at which you toil under the sun. And again, the author here is saying, for you who, that God already proved what you do, you're, a righteous person who leads a righteous life, yes, enjoy what God has blessed you with, right? Similar to the life of Job, right? And we can see what Job, did before, the onslaught came from Satan. He had wealth, he had his family, right? He had servants, and he enjoyed all that, right? And he had feast oftentimes. He brought his children together. He also went out to make sacrifice on behalf of his children too. Whatever your hand finds to do it with your might, for there's no work for or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol, right, which is the grave, Sheol, to which you are going. Whatever your hand finds to do it with your might. For there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol, to which you are going. Basically, you can't take your hammer with you, right? You can't take all the work, that you accumulate, your money, to the grave.
Everything is fleeting.
Yeah. So whatever your hand finds to do it with might. Do it with y'all. There you go.
When we have time, maybe after, I'd love to go back to that slide you had about the mist and all the things underneath. That kind of blew me away when I was looking at that. I was like,
yeah, it's a lot.
I was just thinking of the mist out, and then I said, oh, that's what that really means. It's not.
Yeah. C.S. Lewis says, if I find myself in desires which nothing in this world can satisfy, I'm sure some of us sometimes will feel that way. The most probable explanation is that I was made for another world. Right? The sweetest thing has been my longing to be given a glimpse of the beauty, to be drawn forward. C.S. Lewis is a philosopher by training, and even before he became a Christian. And he knows, after becoming a Christian, that desire, that emptiness that he feels, that whether he pursued wisdom, wealth, wisdom and knowledge in academia, that didn't really satisfy him, because his fellow colleagues challenged him on that. So what is it then? Yeah, so he realized that, these desires just is temporary, right? It could be fleeting too, as you mentioned.
It could be what?
Fleeting. But, we know a lot of people can focus the entire life on one thing, right? Work, academia, something else, taking care of your children, your family, all through your life, right? But, how long does that last, right? Children will grow up, become adults, they'll leave the house, right? And, your work you can work so long because of your body, right? Even the mind, let's say. Yeah. So, Ecclesiastes. All right. Hey, I have a lot more slides, but I guess I'm going to talk through it because I don't think I have it updated here. But let's keep on going. 26, we have lots of time. Yep. So in verse 10 it says, "There is nothing from this world you can bring with you in afterlife." And basically this section of the chapter says, enjoy life through feasting, through your marital relationship, and through your work, because God has favored you already with your portion. And definitely when the author here talks about toil, and he mentions it like more than 10 times in the book of Ecclesiastes. Toil is work. In the negative sense, yes, because in the definition of toil, there's some type of oppression as well, right? It's not positive work, the toil, right? It needs a lot of hard work in it, right? So that's why you see this toil over again. And he defines it. Ultimately, it could be many things. It could be searching for wisdom, seeking love in your life, purpose. That's toil, right?
Lack of satisfaction too, I think.
Yeah. I think the result of toil can give you the lack of satisfaction. You think you're being satisfied while you're toiling, but ultimately, when you sit down and reflect on it, how satisfied are you? Are you fully satisfied? Have you toiled this many years, right? And then the existential frame of mind comes in, like, why am I doing this again? Oh, because I'm good at it? Because I make a lot of money out of it? Maybe. If you do, then hopefully you're using that money to help you find contentment in your toil, right? That's what the author of Ecclesiastes is saying, right? Because from your toil, you should be enjoying all these rewards or blessings that comes out of it, right? There's nothing wrong with that because it's sound, but at the same time, the author is saying it's under the sun. It's like vapor, right? Meaningless, vanity in some ways, right? Verse 11, wisdom better than folly. Again, I saw that under the sun, the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, no favor to those with knowledge, but time and chance happen to them all. What is that? That time and chance happen to them all. For man does not know his time, like fish that are taken in an evil net, and like birds that are caught in a snare. So the children of man are snared in an evil time when it suddenly falls upon him. And that's probably used a lot in funerals too. We don't know when our time comes. It could be by chance.
Yeah.
As we get older,
Right, or-
when we're young, I hate to say this, but currency. As we get older, we realize that that's replaced by time. Time is currency. Time is the new currency.
Time's the new currency. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, time is new currency. Yes, we cannot ever get back time. We cannot. And I think this is part of it, that time and chance happen to them all. So time is one thing, right? We're only here for so many days on earth. God has numbered our days. At the same time, it's a chance, right? We look at Job. Besides Job surviving that ordeal, God said to say, don't take his life. But not everybody's that fortunate, right? As I mentioned, the mid-air collision, right? The tornadoes up Midwest recently. You don't know when your day's up. We don't know, right? So the author of Ecclesiastes here is mentioning that. Hey, by the way, doesn't matter if how fast you run, how strong you are, how much knowledge you have, the riches or the intelligence you have. Guess what? Something can happen. You don't know, right? I mean, God is still in control, but it's
fleeting at best. Yeah, because as we get older, we can't do the things we did when we were younger, and oftentimes we lose our intellect.
The faculties, right?
Faculties,
Yeah, like a fish that are taken in an evil net, or like the birds that are caught in a snare. So the children of man are snared at an evil time when it suddenly falls upon them. Verse 13, I have also seen this example of wisdom under the sun, and it seemed great to me. So he goes in and gives this brief example of a little city with few men in it, and a great king came against it and besieged it, building great siege works against it. Sounds familiar? Mm-hmm. But there was found it a poor wise man, and he by his wisdom delivered the city. Yet no one will remember that poor man's name, that poor man. But I say that wisdom is better than might, though the poor man's wisdom is despised and his words are not heard. He's just saying the fact here. Yes, wisdom saved the city, but guess what? No one's going to remember this guy's name. Probably not just because he was poor, it's just, they're not, remember his name. I mean, if he was rich, maybe, but he says a poor man who has great wisdom, who saved the city, right? Was despised, though, and they're not heard of it again. The words of the wise heard in quiet are better than the shouting of a ruler among fools. It's true. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. I mean, this parallelism is it's basically comparing about ruler among fools versus the wise, right? And definitely wisdom is better than, the siege works of war, right? Whether it's wisdom and diplomacy to avoid war or negotiation to get out of war, right? But then it mentions that it only takes one person to destroy much good, right? Whether it's before the war, after the war, it takes one person. There's tons of examples throughout the Bible history, right? From Adam and one decision he made, right? That affected mankind. Throughout the reign of David, he made a very bad choice, starting with Bathsheba, right? And continues on, okay? One example during the Israelites' 40 years in the wilderness, Jericho. They were supposed to attack Jericho. They did. All the spoils, destroy them. God told them to destroy all of the spoils. Don't take them home because it's going to defile his people. And only one person didn't listen, Achan. And they found out Achan hoarded the spoils. And guess what? His whole family died. And all his possessions. Not just the spoils he took, all his possessions. And because what he did would defile his entire people. And God could have wiped out the Israelites there, but he had grace. He's just like, I'm going to wipe out Achan. There's no more. He doesn't have any further descendants from Achan's line.
Right.
So it takes one person to just wipe out a lot of good, right? And there's a lot of examples in this world, fortunately, but it's pretty much agreed upon here. Now, for the next chapter, as we're going to finish from chapter 10 to 12, all going to be pretty much Proverbs style, right? The author basically writes it in Proverbs form. It's going to look very familiar to Proverbs. He's going to go from one parallelism form to another, and so forth. And let's see, 834. We're just going to go through the chapter 10, the first 5 verses. Dead flies make the perfumer's ointment give off a stench. So little folly outweighs wisdom and honor. Right? This is a comparison of degree. Dead flies make the perfumer's ointment give off a stench. So a little folly outweighs wisdom and honor. Just a little, foolishness can just ruin the whole thing. It's just, what's that saying? That something in the batter can ruin the whole cake or something. I'm trying to remember.
One bad apple doesn't spoil the whole bunch.
There you go. That's one.
Jackson 5, 1967.
Oh, is that how you remember from the song?
Yes.
But I've heard that before. One bad apple can ruin the whole.
I think it was the Osmonds, actually. The
Okay.
Osmond family.
Okay. Osmond.
A little yeast spoils the whole lump.
Say it again.
A little yeast
Yes.
spoils the whole lump.
A little yeast spoils a whole lump. Very good. Because yeast multiplies.
Yeah.
Yes. It grows and grows.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. That's good.
Like a
Thank you,
bad
Kim. Yeah. One bad apple that takes over that, right? I think the ancients, the way they compare, it makes sense because they had dead flies back then. It must be very stinky to be around dead flies. Usually dead flies are around rotting food, right? So, yeah. But this is very clear to our minds, even to this day. A wise man's heart inclines him to the right, but a fool's heart to the left. Even when the fool walks on the road, he lacks sense, and he says to everyone that he is a fool. You see, this is a comparison that you can really see the difference between someone who has a heart of wisdom, the way their path in life, versus someone who's a fool, and you see their path. It's very clear because it says, even when the fool walks on the road, he lacks sense. So you can see how he, goes through life, literally, and that just shows, he's a fool. And he says to everyone that he is a fool. Does he literally say that? No, basically he's saying that this fool, his mouth just keeps babbling.
Perhaps he has enough wisdom to be on the road, but then
Yep.
when he's on it, everything else is out the door.
Yeah, but partly I think it's also you can tell just by when he opens his mouth.
Yeah.
Right? And if the anger of the ruler rises against you, do not leave your place, for calmness will lay great offenses to rest. Here is a proverb of saying, okay, if someone in authority is angry with you, is going against you, don't just leave. Don't leave. Just be calm. Cool. Listen. And probably don't even say anything. Just to let the person cool off. Verse 5, there is an evil that I have seen under the sun, as it were an error proceeding from the ruler. Verse 6, folly is set in many high places, and the rich sit in a low place. I have seen slaves on horses and princes walking on the ground like slaves. So here he's comparing how opposite things are sometimes, where those who are not too, or fools, they're elevated. Maybe because they're pretty good marketing, versus someone who is rich in a low place. So we got to be careful here to understand what the rich means, and slaves on horses and princes walking on the ground like slaves. The status, nobility status here, wealth status, is not really the wealth. It's actually the moral character. So the rich here has a good moral character versus the fool, and the slave here versus the princesses, right? The princess. The moral character of the slaves is not good compared to the princesses. So here it says, and princes walking on the ground like slaves. So sometimes we'll see, even in our society today, that certain people are elevated versus those who are, have better moral character, but they're not elevated. Somehow the reason why, because they stay quiet. There's a reason why they stay quiet. They don't want to engage in the foolish, jabber, right? It's a no-win situation.
Was it Clemens, Mark Twain?
Mm-hmm.
Says it's better to be silent than open your mouth and prove you're a fool, something like that.
That's actually in Proverbs.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
So-
Well, it wasn't Mark Twain.
Well, he might have quoted it.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be said about moral character of those who are usually, not elevated in certain high positions versus those who talk a lot or just full of air, and they are pretty much have more of status, right? A high level status. But I'm just saying that there are, those who are very wise, who has good moral character in higher places. But here, the author's admonishing, right? So a lot of the rest of these proverbs and these two chapters are really admonishments. Let's go to let's see, Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 1. And here, this part, so we're jumping from one stance of, death comes to all. You should enjoy a portion in life. And now he's actually giving advice about money and wealth and diversification. I was surprised to even read this. I was like, this is really what it means? It actually does mean that. Diversify your assets. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7, or even to 8, for you know not what disaster may happen on earth. So verse 1 and 2, it says, cast your bread upon the water, for you will find it after many days. Does it mean storing bread in the water? I don't think that was the point here. But I think it means... so this part can be a little tough to understand. To give a portion to 7 or even to 8 can be toward sowing, like sowing seeds, right? To grow more than what you usually plant. For you know not what disaster may happen on earth. Now, if the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth. And if a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where the tree falls, there will lie. He who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. So it's telling the reader it's good to plan, right? It's good to look at the weather, to understand the weather. to read the farmer's almanac, to know when to sow, what to grow, and what the weather's like, basically. And as you do not know the way the Spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a woman with a child, so you do not know the work of God who makes everything. Right? And this is something, it talks about pregnancy, and oftentimes a couple will be very, celebratory, especially if you're expecting, but, you pray for a good, healthy pregnancy, right? And oftentimes you not know, things can happen during pregnancy. In the morning sow your seed, and at evening withhold not your hand, for you don't know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good. And it goes on to say, light is sweet and is pleasant for the eyes to see the sun. So if a person lives many years, let him rejoice in them all. But let him remember that the days of darkness will be many. All that comes is vanity. So verse 8 really is saying that if you are a person that lived many years, you most likely will see many dark days. Don't be surprised, right? But so what happens if you see all these dark days? Remember that the days of darkness were many, but all that comes is vanity, still meaningless, right? But he does say, let him rejoice in them all, okay? In all the years, all the years you're alive. Rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart in the sight of your eyes. But know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. It's not like the author is telling his son or his children, don't do anything bad. He is saying, enjoy your youthful days. Take risks. But also remember, God will judge all that you do, right? He's giving that warning, right, at the end. Verse 10, remove vexation from your heart and put away pain from your body, for youth and the dawn of life are vanity. So what would bring you vexation to your heart, and what would bring you pain for your body? For youth and dawn of life are vanity. I think a lot of things that we do to our bodies sometimes, hopefully it's good, not bad. Our health is important. But there's also vexation from your heart, things that will cause you, But he says it's fleeting too, for youth and dawn of life are vanity. I think of, when you talk about the youth is, your first, love, heartbreak, right? First love, kiss, heartbreak. And then put away the pain from your body. Put away pain from your body. I remember when I was young, doing all those different sports, going skiing and stuff. That was good pain. But then I realized later on in life, that I can't do as many of those sports I used to and get the same quick, recovery time. Recovery's a little slower now. Much slower, like thanks to a little help of Tylenol, right? So.
Well, the old injuries from your youth creep up on you when you're older.
Oh, yeah, especially if you're an athlete. My brother's an athlete, so he has a lot of knee issues. Yeah. But I even know a lot of friends who were real athletes who get surgeries when they were young, and now they still have to get surgeries. So you're right. I totally agree with that too. I think.
You feel it when it rains. Yes,
you feel it when it rains. When the pressure drops, the pressure changes a lot. It's like, ooh, my bones is telling me something. Chapter 12. It's basically the final summary and the purpose. Why the author wrote this, right? It's giving the reader hope. He says, remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come and the years draw near of which you will say, I have no pleasure in them. And the next couple verses is basically a parallelism called climatic parallelism with metaphors. So if you can pick out the metaphor, you know what it means. And I know a lot of us here are not that youthful, so I think we will know what these metaphors mean, right? I have no pleasure in them. Okay, right. So as you get older, especially get up to a certain age, I tasted this type of food. I don't find any more pleasure. I've done golf here. I golfed this, PGA grounds. I don't find any more pleasure in golfing. I've already done this. Already done that. Right. So that's what he meant. I have no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened and the clouds return after the rain. This is the foreshadowing of death, right? Before all that happens, in the day when the keepers of the house tremble and the strong men are bent and the grinders cease because they are few and those who look through the window are dim. I'm going to stop right there. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars darken and the clouds return after the rain, in the day when the keepers of the house tremble. Who are the keepers of the house tremble? Well, the keepers of the house are, our hands, our feet, right? Our legs. Some of us have knee surgery. And the strong men are bent. Strong men, your shoulders. Every time I go to physical therapy, they say, yeah, you slouch a lot. I'm saying, well, because I'm in front of the computer 8 hours a day. It's like, okay, stand back. Okay, do some of these. All right, when I'm younger, my shoulders are rolled back. Yeah. But as we get older, it's just like that picture, from starting from crawling to adult, and then from adult, you start going back, and then you have a cane. Yeah. You have a third leg. So that's what it means by the strong man and bent. And the grinders cease because they are few. You going to use the grinders for that?
The mold.
What's the grinders?
The mold. The mold.
Yeah, the teeth. Yeah, we'll lose some of them. Whether you have to get crowns or...
Long in the tooth.
What was that?
Long in the tooth.
Long in the tooth.
You know what that means?
No.
As we get older, our gums recede.
Oh, yeah.
So
the
our
gum.
teeth become longer, or they appear to be longer, so you're long in the tooth.
And hopefully you have good roots. If your roots are still good, it will be intact. If you don't, it falls right out.
Actually, it's an equestrian term because horses, when they're youngsters, the teeth are short, and then once they get from 10 on, the teeth are longer, and they actually point out, you can tell how old a horse is by
Oh, really?
the
Okay.
teeth that's
Wow.
in there.
That's good. And those who look through the windows are dim.
Glasses.
Yeah, our eyes, yeah. And the doors on the street are shut when the sound of grinding is low. Deafness. Yep. So verse 4 means, and the doors on the street are shut when the sound of grinding is low. So our body, our ears, part of hearing. And one rises up to the sound of a bird. Any of you guys now wake up early in the morning just from a little crack of the dawn of the bird? And like, what? Why are you chirping? Oh, it's only 4. Chirp at 5, please. So I could get an hour. Right?
Birds actually wake up the grass. So it's time to get up, start growing.
At least someone listens to the birds.
It's amazing because everything has a purpose in life.
And all the daughters of song are brought low.
Oh.
I think if you're
deep, you get a deeper voice.
Or as you get older, your voice softer. Yes, that's what it means. The daughters of song are brought low. Verse 5, they are afraid also of what is high, and terrors are in the way. They are afraid also of what is high, and terrors are in the way. My cousin, he's in his late 70s now. My mom always said, you used to be a good swimmer. Why don't you just go swimming again? I don't know why my mom said that to him, because this is when he was still in his early 70s. He's like, well, actually, I have a fear of water now.
No.
He said after he retired, he thought about going swimming, but he had a fear of water. It's funny because, maybe this is, and I think this is what it means here, and they're afraid of what is high and terrors are in the way. So as you get older, things might frighten you more. I don't know. I still get a little, I bring a flashlight and go down to the basement, even though I turn on the light. But, I think, you're afraid of doing more riskier things when you're older.
Afraid of what's high. So you said high?
Yeah, high. It says high, yeah.
Perhaps when you're younger, you're not afraid of heights. You'll go up trees. But
Yeah.
now we know
Very good.
if we're up high and we fall, we're going to break something.
Oh, break something. That's right. Yeah.
Maybe that's it.
Less risk taking. Yes. The almond tree blossoms. The grasshopper drags itself along. The almond tree blossoms. When the almond tree blossoms, the flowers are white.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Right here. The grasshopper drags itself along.
That's how we do, yeah.
Yeah, especially if you have a knee surgery. Well, we just lose our strength, our physical strength. We gotta, like, this is what I hear all the time. When you get older, you lose muscle mass, you lose strength. That's why the most important thing that my PT said, if you get older, weightlifting. Lift lots of weights, constantly. That's what it says.
Well, it's true, you can maintain your muscle mass with
Yep.
with that.
You know, and it says here, and desire fails. Desire fails. Because man is going to his eternal home. And desire fails, romance, you know, any other desires, you could think of it, right? Because man is going to his eternal home. And the mourners go about the streets, right? I think at least when my parents, at least when my dad's alive, and my mom's still going to a lot of funerals. But I think my mom is pretty much outlived majority of our friends, but she doesn't go to funerals anymore. Just with fact. She's mid-80s now. So, but it's just a fact when my mom and dad in their 70s, they went to a lot of funerals. But here, the mourners go about the streets. Verse 6, before the silver cord is snapped or the golden bowl is broken. This is the body now. What do you think the silver cord is? The spinal cord? Now, amazing how Solomon, how wise he knows the anatomy of the human body. Or the golden bowl is broken. Your head, your skull. Or the pitcher is shattered, the fountain. Or the pitcher is shattered at the fountain. What do you think? The pitcher is shattered. This is the body. He's talking about the body here. What do you think in your body, the organ that has the pitcher? It's like a pitcher. Yeah, stomach, the bladder, any organ that holds water is shattered at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. The wheel broken at the cistern. That's the heart or the lungs. And the dust returns to earth as it was. So in Genesis 3, it says, God said to Adam, your punishment is dust to dust you return to. And the dust returns to earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Indeed, the author is a believer, right? He believes that, no, you don't go to purgatory, you go straight to God, you go straight to heaven. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, all is vanity. And ultimately, verses 9 to 13. We're almost there. Besides being wise, so this is just the third person summary. Besides being wise, the preacher also taught the people knowledge, weighing and studying and arranging many proverbs with great care. Indeed he did. The preacher sought to find words of delight, and uprightly he wrote words of truth. The words of the wise are like goads. Goads is a stick that prods cattle. Okay? And like nails firmly fixed are collected sayings. They are given by one shepherd. Right? Thank you that true wisdom is Jesus, right? It's given by one shepherd. My son, beware of anything beyond this. Of making many books, there is no end, and much study is weariness of the flesh. Tons of self-help books out there today. Tons of them. You could learn about everything from Nietzsche, from all these philosophers, all these modern age gurus, right? Tons of them out there. But the author here tells his son, beware of anything beyond these, right? The end of the matter, all has been heard. Once you hear all these proverbs, it's ultimately, fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. This is the purpose of man, really. For God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. There you go. I mean, ultimately, I wish the author would start with these two verses.
Yeah.
Right? Just remember that, your main purpose is to fear God and to keep his commandments. And here you go. Here's the following things I want to tell you. But here he ends it here, though. which keeps you kind of keep on reading, I think, part of it, but also to understand that he wants to tell you there's a lot of wisdom out there. It's endless, but you know what? You know, anything beyond these, making many books, there's no end. And much study is weariness. Again. So that's the admonishment. It's really more an admonishment, I think, verse 12 and to 13. And learning that, ultimately the purpose of man, the chief purpose of man is to glorify God, to know him, to keep his commandments, right? To know him means to fear God. Yeah. All right. So that's it for Ecclesiastes. I'm just going to finish the class with prayer, and then we can do Q&A. Right? Father, thank you for tonight. Thank you for each and every one of us, Lord. Thank you for your word. Thank you that you have ordained this time and place. And we ask for your mercy and grace upon us as we learn about your word and put it into our lives, Lord, into our hearts, Lord, to understand it, to love you, and to share this with others too, Lord, Father, and share your love that you've given to us, Father. So we thank you for this time, and we ask that you bless the rest of our conversations tonight. In Jesus, pray all these things.